Is the stock market a reflection of reality, or is it a carefully orchestrated illusion? We are taught that auditing is the bedrock of finance. If a company claims they have a warehouse full of televisions, auditors count them, verify the ledger, and investors pour their money in. But what happens when a retail titan decides that math is merely a suggestion? In the 1970s and 80s, Crazy Eddie was not just a chain of stores in New York. It was a cultural force. The commercials were relentless. They screamed that his prices were insane, and the public listened. Eddie Antar built an electronics empire that felt unstoppable. To the average shopper, he was a visionary. To the high-stakes players on Wall Street, he was a golden goose, a man whose growth charts defied gravity. He commanded the airwaves and captured the market. But behind the aggressive persona and the frantic retail pace, the foundations of the company were built on something entirely different. The world saw a success story. The reality was a masterclass in deception. Behind the warehouse doors, the business operated on a different frequency. Every day, the registers were emptied, but not everything made it to the bank. The Antar family members worked with surgical precision, skimming millions in cash before the daily counts were finalized. This was not a digital crime. It was physical, messy, and constant. They pried back ceiling tiles and shoved thick stacks of bills into the hollow spaces above the sales floor. When the ceiling could hold no more, they turned to suitcases. Heavy, leather-bound bags filled with untaxed currency moved through the back exits, bypassing the accounting office entirely. These suitcases were destined for offshore accounts in Israel and Panama, funneled through networks designed to vanish into thin air. While the public saw a growing electronics chain, the family kept a second, secret ledger. This book was the only thing that tracked the real money, the stolen money. It was the true engine of the business, hidden away from auditors, tax agents, and every investor who thought they were buying into a legitimate retail juggernaut. The foundation of the empire was not profit. It was theft. Eddie realized that theft alone had a ceiling. He wanted the massive premiums reserved for high-growth public companies. He initiated a strategy he called the Panama Pump. The family took the same suitcases of smuggled cash and routed them back through their own corporate registers. They disguised the illicit funds as legitimate store sales. On paper, the company was a juggernaut of explosive growth. Every dollar of laundered money made the business look more profitable, more dominant, and more irresistible. Wall Street analysts looked at the numbers and saw a retail miracle. They poured capital into the venture, desperate for a slice of the action. When Crazy Eddie went public, the stock price did not just rise, it ignited. The IPO was a massive success. The Antar family watched as their net worth ballooned, fueled by the very cash they had stolen from their own registers. Investors cheered. Bankers toasted to the new king of electronics. The illusion was complete, and the market was hooked on a lie masquerading as a record-breaking success story. Success brought a new, sharper kind of danger. The electronics market began to cool, and the frenzy of the early years slowed to a crawl. But Wall Street demanded growth that never stopped. Eddie could not afford a plateau. Every quarter, the analysts expected higher margins, and every quarter, he had to invent them. The pressure started to warp the office air. It was no longer about simple theft. It was about protecting the illusion at any cost. The ledgers became bloated with impossible numbers that demanded reality to match them. Eddie spent his days pacing the floor, eyes fixed on stock tickers that seemed to mock his fading lead. He knew that if the growth stopped, the scrutiny would start. Auditors were no longer distant figures. They were a constant, looming threat. His lie was becoming a living, breathing burden that required constant feeding. The office walls felt like they were closing in. Every meeting was a gamble. Every report was a fabrication built on a foundation of sand. The silence in the warehouse was no longer peaceful. It was the sound of a countdown, and the clock was ticking faster than he could run. The fraud moved from the books to the floor. Eddie realized that fake math was not enough. He needed physical evidence to fool the auditors. He ordered his team to break into the auditors' desks. They retrieved the secret testing plans, identifying exactly which stores would be checked and when. Once they had the schedule, the operation began. Every night, trucks loaded up at one location. They raced across the city. They unloaded crates of televisions at the Target store just hours before the auditors arrived. The same serial numbers were counted in Brooklyn, then moved to Queens, then to the Bronx. It was a shell game played with heavy electronics. Employees worked until dawn, sweating under the glare of warehouse lights, shifting pallets and stacking boxes to hit the targets required by the ledger. They invented ghost assets and forged shipping manifests by the dozen. If the auditors arrived, the warehouse looked packed. The shelves were full. The inventory matched the fraudulent growth. It was a perfect, exhausting lie, performed over and over again until the sun came up, leaving the employees drained and the company record books perfectly, dangerously balanced. The math finally cracked. As the electronics market bottomed out, the sheer scale of the phantom inventory became impossible to maintain. A hostile takeover triggered the end. When the new owners forced the doors to the central warehouse, they did not find the rows of high-end electronics promised by the ledgers. They found empty space. A $45 million hole stared back at them from the accounting records. The illusion was gone. But Eddie was already prepared for the exit. He had methodically dumped millions of shares at the peak of the stock price, pocketing $70 million in cash. As the SEC investigators began to swarm the corporate offices, he did not wait for the subpoenas. He simply disappeared. With a forged passport and a network of shell companies, he fled the country. He left his family, his retail empire, and his reputation behind to crumble into bankruptcy. The man who had built his life on the claim of insane prices had effectively orchestrated the ultimate liquidation. He was gone, moving toward Israel under the name David Jacob Levi, while the company he created turned into a hollow shell of debt and scandal. The facade held for years, but geography could not protect a lie of that magnitude. International investigators traced the path of his shell companies and the trail of his offshore transfers. In Israel, the man, known as David Jacob Levi, finally ran out of road. He was arrested, processed, and forcibly placed on a flight back to face the consequences of his creation. The courtroom was not a stage for retail theatrics. There were no flashing lights or screaming commercials. There was only the cold, hard record of what had been taken and what had been faked. The judge did not care about his vision. The law cared about the ledger. As the gavel fell, the story of the electronics empire reached its final, quiet conclusion. Eddie Antar proved that while you can manipulate math and baffle auditors for a season, you cannot hide from the truth forever. The empty warehouse always speaks for itself. It stands as a monument to the difference between a real business and a hollow shell. Was the system naive to trust him, or was it a willing participant in the game? The numbers never lie, even when the people do. The case is closed, but the lesson remains for every investor watching from the sidelines.